So there's nothing worse than a dead battery and a dying battery and a failing battery. And that's what I'm dealing with now. I got an upgrade coming November 1st. But I thought if anybody could game the system, it's Brian Crawford. It's Pittsburgh's moral compass. He's going to go in, set the cell phone companies straight. And usually I have a flawless record. But today, even old Brian Crawford couldn't stand up to the menagerie of incompetence and, well, maybe it's not incompetence, maybe it's intentional, but the jackassery of Sprint. They've mastered it. I'm telling you, Sprint. Terrible service, customer service, cell phone service, all of the service. It's bad. It's real bad. And I thought, November 1st, it's not too far away, right? 1 month. I thought Brian Crawford, would work the system. I'll get my phone upgraded today. And I went through the system, and we're going to talk a little bit about it, about how Sprint has set up their systems so beautifully to just screw over their customers. Only the existing customers. But they have it down to a science. And I'm really, 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 really good at finding a way to get back at these companies. But I feel like even I have met my match. Sprint is just so dirty, so shady. They're like the Wells Fargo of cell phone companies. Now that's even a little too harsh for Sprint. I'm sorry. That is the Wells Fargo of cell phone companies. But again, even that's a little harsh. We're going to go into the story about how I tried to beat the system and how the system beat me down. The man stuck it to me. And here I am with the old Note 8 still in my possession. I was trying to make that switch. I caused a lot of controversy on social media the other day. I announced that I'm switching back to the iPhone. And people are so polarized by the decision. And then Jeremy Kaywood picked up the story. He shared it as well, and people were commenting there, loving it, hating it. People were very, very passionate. And I made the post because I knew people would get pissed. But I'm still not really sure why. Why does anyone care what cell phone I have? That's the weird thing. People are so loyal to Apple. People are so loyal to Samsung or Google. Or I guess, is anyone loyal to LG? I don't think anyone's loyal to LG, but people have LG. But why? Why are you so loyal to a $1 trillion company that practically uses slave labor or at least child labor in third world countries to make these devices? I mean, I'm going to buy them, but I'm certainly not loyal to the company. It's not like there's some sort of valued company. Hell, they stopped the FBI from cracking a phone, and all of a sudden they're the most righteous company in the USA. Let's ignore everything else. But I just basically go with what I like. I liked the Samsung last time, so I got the Samsung. This time I like the Apple, so I'm going with the Apple. But I find it humorous how many people care. So we're going to talk about my cell phone dilemma here. This is River Talk. I'm Brian Crawford. I'm a little frustrated today. I spent the entire day at the Sprint store and Best Buy and on the phone and in the chat room and this and that and trying to get the cell phone situation under control. This is the River's Edge Radio Network at riversedgepgh.com. Don't forget you can tell your Alexa to play the River's Edge station on TuneIn and catch the Alexa there. We've got a lot of stuff in store for you today. We've got the cell phone crisis. I'll tell you how I beat Comcast. That's right, I actually beat Comcast. That's how good I am. And that shows you really how messed up Sprint is. If I can beat Comcast, but I can't beat Sprint, I did beat them the first go around, but the second time, they've got me. I can't, they've set the system up so that way no matter what, even if they mess up, even if you're a master at catching them in a lie, they have no way of verifying it. Their systems are so messed up. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk with the Pittsburgh voice coach. He's here in studio. We're going to talk about the value of a voice coach in your band or as a performer. And I was really interested to read up about how many really prominent people in the Pittsburgh scene use voice coaches, and I thought that really is something that really kind of sells the point. And then we have an aberration in studio, the late Hank the businessman. He's died and come back. He's back in a new form, and we're going to talk with him about the change in direction of his marketing and what he has going on as well. Got Zach Fell behind the board. So we're going to get into the whole Sprint thing, but I'll tell you about Comcast, just to let you know, give you a taste of how good I am, and then we'll get into my friend Keith Harker, the Pittsburgh voice coach. But I had Comcast. So, well, first off, let's take it back like I don't know, 20 plus years ago, 30 years ago. We had TCI. Do you remember TCI? It was a cable company. It was I grew up in Westmoreland County, and they still have franchise rights out there, which basically means a mega company, a giant company like Comcast, pays the local government to have a complete monopoly in your area, so they could charge you whatever they want. Oh, we also got weird news coming up, horse stories, all sorts of good stuff. But speaking of horse stories, Comcast, yeah, they basically bought TCI, a company from Philadelphia that it's too poor to buy their own real estate, so we as taxpayers funded their skyscraper because the multi-billion-dollar company just didn't have the extra cash for office space. So we helped them out. Then they came into Westmoreland County and bought up all of the wires. That's basically what happened. So I'm there, right? They've got a monopoly. I moved from Jeanette to Manor, where if you're in Pittsburgh, that would be like moving from Bloomfield to Lawrenceville, practically. But when you move and you switch zip codes, it's a new contract. And when it's a new contract, if you're signed up for automatic payments, they kick you out of automatic payments. Nobody told me. So I'm sitting there at home watching TV, and I start getting calls on my phone, and anybody who knows me, they know that I don't answer the phone. I don't even have the phone on volume. If it wasn't for this watch, I can use this watch to find the phone. I wouldn't even be able to find the phone if I lost it because it won't ring. It's on silent 24 hours a day. I hate talking on the phone. But I'm starting to get these calls. It's starting to get annoying, so I pick up. It's a creditor from Comcast trying to get me to pay my bill. I'm like, what are you talking about? I have automatic payments. I can't miss it. Well, here they kicked me out of automatic payments, didn't tell me. I said, well, that's your fault. You're going to make it right. I'm not going to pay you now. I'm going to pay you when I want to pay you. So I did. I set up a date. But then I kept getting calls from Comcast. I answered the phone again. Now you've got me on the phone twice. That's a big deal. So I'm on the phone with Comcast. I'm pissed because I'm talking on the phone. I said, look, I already handled this with you. I already scheduled a date. They looked it up. They did their computer thing. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Crawford. Yeah, shove it. I already talked to you once. Get away from me. The day comes. The day that the money is supposed to come out of the account. Well, it turns out that they shut the cable off for an hour, despite talking to two different people about a payment that was missed because they took me out of automatic payments. So I'm pissed then. I call up. I'm reaming them out. I've been with you since before Comcast existed and this and that, and I'm yelling at them. Got them up against the gun. That's the tactic. You gotta go on the offensive as soon as you call these people. Immediately start yelling, sending out accusations, accusing them of not caring about their customer, put them on the defensive, and then they're immediately trying to appease you. And that's how you get goodies. So I yelled at them. I told them off. I said, no, it's your fault. I pointed the finger through the phone. And they gave me a month off, and they lowered my bill. I got all sorts of free stuff. Lowered my bill not just for the next month, but indefinitely. And I had Comcast with DVR, digital cable, internet, cable internet, all of that stuff at such a low price. I was walking through the mall at the Best Buy store. And the guy comes up with his clipboard. He comes up to me, adjusts his tie. How much do you pay for your cable? And I told him. And he had this look of shock. And he said, oh, I can't beat that. And he walked away with his head hung in shame. That's how good I am, and I couldn't even beat Sprint. We're going to talk about the whole nightmare of a situation as the show goes on. We've got the weird news. We've got Joe Leytrick coming up. But right now we have Keith Harker to my right, the Pittsburgh voice coach. Keith, welcome to the River's Edge. Do you have a cable or cell phone horror story?
Not too many, other than the miscellaneous amounts of shattered screens and things like that, over the years. But honestly, I do think it's a racket. In the grand scheme of things, it's easy to put companies against each other if you're in a location that has those two things. Verizon, Comcast, whenever I lived in Forest Hills, was hilarious. I used to be able to get them to fight to lower the bills all the time. But now that I'm back out in Westmoreland County, where you're from,
originally,
it's
I'm here now, here in good old Millville at Mr. Small's, where we broadcast out of.
Yep. It's a still pretty an interesting struggle out in Westmoreland County, but it is what it is, I guess. And one person can only fight so hard whenever you're fighting against a much larger.
Oh, I'm very good, and I'm very ruthless. In fact, people have told me, seriously, that I should give classes on how to take down mega corporations.
I was going to say, man, if you take a small nominal fee to go and sit on customer service for me and rip a few dollar bills off of.
Well, a lot of these people just give up. Like this whole thing with Comcast. A lot of people would have just said, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Right.
Would have just given them everything that they wanted, paid late fees and everything else, when it was their incompetence that brought about the problem in the first place.
Yep. I can't tell you, man. And my business has a lot to do with internet. And whenever I lose internet, or whenever I have like a drop in signal strength or something like that.
You're talking about the voice coach?
Yeah, my voice coach stuff. I do a lot of I share a lot of media, do a lot of live recording and live feedback. So, you have live recordings of your lessons that are constantly available. And if I can't upload that, or if I lose that data because of something, then that could put a project, back a few weeks, if it's not saved or whatever. I know that with the storms that we've had in the past few months, ignoring the internet aspect of it, just the loss of data that happened in those 2 or 3 days of heavy storms was actually pretty significant. I had a student that was doing an online vocal competition who was in the final round, and I was uploading his semifinals video. And I was lucky, I got it, but 4 seconds after it finished the upload to my Google Drive, it just that was that. It was really stressful because how Google Drive does that verification after you upload it. Yeah. Well, it hit that, and I'm sitting there with my heart in my throat until the power came back on. Thank God I had it. But there was it's a lot of stuff to worry about, and with today's day and age and how businesses operate, I mean, heck, just even this project that we're sitting on right now, without accountable internet, without accountable data, this stuff could come crashing down faster than who knows what's it's.
Well, the River's Edge is completely internet-based.
Yeah, exactly.
All of our contracts are internet. We send them through the internet. People sign them through the internet.
And what happens when those ones and zeros stop flowing? Absolutely everything stops flowing. So that's always been my big concern, personally, at least from those things. And I can distinctly remember whenever it was the first year I was open, and it was before I bumped up to a slightly more up-to-date router. Mm-hmm. But I remember having to sit on the phone with Comcast for probably the better part of 45 minutes. And I had students coming in and out of my door. I couldn't call and cancel them. They were already on their way in. So I got stuck listening to elevator music for, a good chunk of my day.
That's awful.
It was horrible. But,
your entire day is ruined at that point when you're on the phone. I mean, I don't know how you are, but I feel like a prisoner.
Oh, yeah.
On the phone.
Oh yeah, especially because it's not like I required the internet to complete the lessons, but at the same time, I'm the guy in charge of that internet. I can't very well be like, "Hey, student, who's waiting for their lesson? Do you mind, listening on this phone and then handling my internet woes for me while I'm going to make money to pay for this problem?"
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a juggling act that it would be very nice to not have to deal with again. That's really.
I never really thought about voice coaching and internet going hand in hand, but it does make sense when you talk about some of the other aspects of the business, like you said, submitting paperwork and submitting a lot of files and things like that.
So I think, at least a lot that I've encountered, I seem to take a very different approach than what normal people, close their eyes and think, voice teacher or voice coach. I'm not classically trained. My background is in speech pathology and audiology. I've been certified in a few different vocal pedagogical classes and things like that over the years. But the biggest thing is the fact that I've just performed my whole life, and whenever I learned the science behind the production of the voice and how all that stuff works, I just immediately started applying it. And thankfully, I am, a product of my day and age, and I love technology. And that was really, I feel, the thing that was holding back a lot of vocal evolution in music. I mean, you can actually kind of see it if you want to look at like the technological development timeline that took place between the 90s and the 2000s. We just simply didn't have the means of, putting a camera inside somebody's throat while they're singing, or we couldn't record and mass produce and mass, distribute and things like that. Now any DIY musician can be, a globally accessed thing with the proper amount of, direction and advertising if you know how to do it. But the reason why that's a little bit more relevant to the vocal coach world now is I can not only sit there and do things that, you close your eyes and think of a vocal coach doing, like making you sound better and things like that, but I can also, test and develop that sound within a recording program. I can it's not just me sitting on a piano and plunking out notes and being like, oh, that was beautiful, do that again. It's getting into the multiple layers of your music. It's not just, superficial approach anymore. And the other thing is my approach is much more, well, not really specifically my approach, but the approach that I share with other people. It's much more of an organic approach to the production of voice. It's much more health conscious and much more speaking voice based. One of the weirdest things.
What do you mean by that? Speaking voice versus
singing voice?
There's
a lovely anecdote that I take away from the first place that got me started in teaching, which was the Barbershop Harmony Society. There's a lovely musical out there called The Music Man, and Barbershop loves to eat it up because there's a featured barbershop quartet in that. The scene takes place in the fact that 4 guys walk up to Professor Harold Hill and say, well, we can't sing. We don't do any of that stuff. It's whatever. And the guy that says, well, I don't sing, says it in a very low voice. And literally the guy just says, well, then talk down there, and then talk real slow. And wouldn't you know it? Well, then the scene just evolves, and magically all 4 guys can sing perfectly. But
so basically, through someone's speech, you can kind of find out where they fit best.
That's actually, so that's the focus. What a lot of classical voice trainers do, particularly in I don't want to draw a very firm line here, but it's much more classical, opera type individuals from, I'd say, my elementary school era. So all of those voice teachers out there, they're just like, monkey see, monkey do. This is the right answer. When I say sing, whatever happens vocally within your structure, like your larynx and all the muscles involved, that can all shift, because so long as the end product is received by your teacher, they don't care how you produce it. The way that I approach it is I like to take all that smoke and mirrors and junk out of there, because, frankly, the most commonly used form of your voice is your speaking voice. If you can wrap that around in how you sing, well, if you ever run out of or get vocally fatigued from singing so much, well, maybe that's because your singing gear is a little off. You need to shift that back a little bit to a more basic feel. I got my business really started in the fact that early on, about 3.5, 4 years ago, I've not been doing this all that long, I've had a few students that made claims to fame for themselves. Aubrey Burchell was my very first student ever. Made it top 50 in American Idol this this year that that the show came back. And my start with her was just the fact that whenever she started performing 3-hour sets as a little 15-year-old girl, the last thing that you want is this girl to go sing out her voice. So whenever she continues to age, she doesn't have a voice anymore. So I just took all of my medical knowledge of speech pathology and all of that junk and my applications of a few of the other classes that I took, and I just really wanted to make sure that no matter how hard she wanted to sing, she was doing it in the absolute most efficient way possible, so she can go ahead and do it the next day for 3 more hours. And
well, that makes so much sense.
Exactly.
You don't want to go in. It's like even speaking. Speaking of speaking,
right?
You go out in a speaking engagement. If I'm out here on River Talk and I'm talking in a weird voice the entire time, it's going to eventually, I'm going to lose my voice. That's going to be my natural voice.
Right. And I'm going to give a big shout out to the Voice Center at Mercy Hospital in Pittsburgh. And I'm sure that you guys are completely unaware of how many people I've shoved over to your office in the past, like 8 years of me dabbling with vocal teaching. But 100%, it doesn't matter how much money you make as a performer. You're still only standing on the one brick of your voice whenever you're up there singing into a microphone. Like, if you can play an instrument, cool. But, your voice is who you are up on stage whenever you're doing that stuff. And vocal health is what everything is being held together by. If you let your vocal, hygiene just kind of flounder, like if you don't drink water, hydration is super important. If you don't have a lot of sleep like me right now, which is why my voice is super gravelly.
All the time.
Exactly. It's just like, it's one of those situations. If you're not aware of that as a performer, you're truly doing yourself a discredit because, well, how seriously are you really taking what you're trying to do if you're not taking care of every aspect of it? At least that's my personal mentality behind it, because your voice is, it's not a guitar. You can't just like leave it in a case somewhere accidentally. It's with you.
But
You
even
have to
then,
maintain
in a
it.
guitar, you have to make sure it's in the right conditions.
It can't
it's
be
kind
in
of
a
like
cold room versus a hot room.
Exactly.
Have
Yeah.
problems like that. Oh my.
That's right.
But so the real approach of it is just making sure that you don't complicate it for yourself. I find that a lot of the students that I have significant successes with early are the folks that are open-minded enough to allow themselves to dial it back. Most people that have had prior vocal training keep having things tacked on. Like, you keep stacking more and more things onto the plate. Like, oh, I need to worry about making this part of the song sound brighter and happier. Okay, well, if I do this and then this and then this, then that means I also have to do this and then this. In my mind, I'm just like, why complicate it? Reduce those things. That's more stuff that your brain will have to trip up on. That's what makes people forget lyrics up on stage whenever they're, doing stuff.
Sure.
You just don't want to put those extra hurdles in front of you. You want to take a nice logical approach to your music to have the maximum impact for the absolute minimum amount of trying amounts of effort. You just want it to be a natural, organic thing anyway.
So what makes a voice coach so special? Because I come here to the Acoustic Cafe on a lot of Mondays and different open mics, and you have different musicians giving people advice and talking about their craft and how to do better. So what makes a voice coach special?
So I think voice coaches are a little bit overlooked because of how poignant your voice truly is. It's something that we all take for granted. We wake up in the morning, we can talk. We've been able to do so since probably most of us have been like 2 or 3 years old. So
some of us can't stop talking.
Some of us can't stop talking. And that's really the thing that allows it to be so overlooked. Is it's just something that we always do. And a lot of people have a tendency, whenever they're critiquing music, they critique it in like the big picture aspect. They don't necessarily break it down into individual components unless it's like the big picture aspect and then the instruments. The voice almost never plays into it. And if it does so because somebody out there encountered a voice teacher and they were like, I should talk about this. And that's like one out of maybe however many people in the room. But the reason why a voice coach is important is because, just think about it like this. I always like to tell this anecdote too. If you're talking to somebody over the phone, you can tell what type of emotion they have pretty easily. You can tell if they're happy. You can tell if they're sad. You can tell if they're smiling. You can tell if they're bored. You can tell if they're bored.
I feel like Sprint probably got that from me.
Probably we're feeding it back to you pretty nicely too. But that's it's a weird subconscious thing. You're just paying attention to these things in the back of your head. It's nothing that you ever really think about. But for something as simple as interpreting your own song, singer-songwriters, interestingly enough, I find have like the hardest job with this, because a cover is super friendly in the sense that it's just like, hey, the original performer had this all outlined and blueprinted, and there it is, signed and stamped and ready to go, and you can like put your own twist on it, but it's basically going to be what he did too, or she did. And when you take that approach, it loses some of that actual stuff. But back to it, regarding the emotions of a song, you can literally just sell that by exaggerating a smile just a little bit. Paint the picture in your head. Allow yourself to be taken away a little bit by your own music, and let it bleed into your sound a little bit. It's not. I know I'm getting away from the science and much more of a philosophical approach to this, but that's
it all kind of ties in, right? I mean, it's all part of what makes the performer successful.
Right. And interestingly enough, a lot of the students that I teach are very left-brained individuals. They're very technical. They only really like to talk about things like in modes and whatever. Like I am not a theory guy. I am 100% a singer. Do not hand me an instrument. But with that being said, I can't talk that language, but I had to figure out a way to get logically minded individuals to think with the creative part of their brain. And you do so by explaining to them the nuts and bolts of what they're working with. The moment that a person who likes to tear something down and build it back up again looks at an anatomy picture of your voice box, they're like, oh, it all makes sense.
Yes.
Things are connected. I'll give everybody a big hint here today, too. Muscle connections. They're like, if you're a gym rat, you know everything about muscle connections. You strain a muscle, you bruise something. If you move a muscle down the line, that bruised muscle still hurts a little bit. Same thing with your voice. If you're looking for a little bit of a brighter sound, the most superficial thing I tell my students is to raise your eyebrows. It feels super weird, but if you raise your eyebrows, you can feel your voice box lift just a teeny bit. And that will increase the hertz of your vocal fold vibrations by 10 or 15 hertz.
Oh, wow.
And that's enough to prevent you from going flat. It's just simple little things like that will prevent, tension from building up and anxiety from building up and the immediate loss of control that follows those things whenever they reach a certain threshold. So in my mind, the approach and things like that, the importance of a vocal coach is really just to bring these things to the forefront of the performer's, their mindset. And if you want me to be, I guess, not so serious about that comment, real talk, musicians have a lot to worry about when they're up on stage.
Yeah.
It's just super helpful to have somebody who isn't your biggest fan. That's super helpful, because if I'm your biggest fan, I'm not going to tell you stink.
Sure.
But your best friend will tell you stink. That's the important difference. And whenever you make sure that you have those proper levels of critique, you make sure that you pay attention to the message being communicated within your piece. That's where people like speech pathologists come in. There's a lot of communication analysis involved in that, and behavioral analysis. And those types of things are super important for a stage presence. Heck, man, how did mimes make it famous? They don't even say anything up on stage. They're about
awesome.
stage presence.
Yes.
Exactly. And that's
be terrible for radio.
Yeah. Oh, horrible guest. But that's really it. And that's really what I try to bring to this to the field too. I feel like a lot of musicians are still kind of caught up in the old world ways, and I mean, I have a formal education, but I'll be darned if I'm gonna sit down and button down shirt and tied tie area and talk about music. That's not music to me. I don't want that. That's not fun at all.
Can I talk about one of your clients?
Sure, go for it.
So Jim Donovan is one of your clients?
I've worked with Jim Donovan. He obviously is a pretty prevalent musician.
Huge name in the Pittsburgh area.
Yeah.
I mean, when he came to you, did that what went through your mind?
Interestingly enough, I'll give credit where credit's due. It was because of the kind words that his daughters gave to him for me. I am, again, out in the hometown, and just from word of mouth, I was lucky enough to get up a lot of good students, and from that, the reputation kind of went, and lo and behold, I taught both of Jim's daughters really before I knew there was that huge of a connection. And well, it didn't take too long until I was introduced to that concept. But whenever he finally got in touch with me, and we didn't work on much. Obviously, he knows what he's doing.
Fantastic. He's been around the world.
Yeah, and he brought up only really one point to me, and we had a nice discussion about it and talked about all the nuts and bolts behind the approach to singing. And all it really was adding a little bit of additional stability to the more reachy parts of his songs, like things that are towards the extremes of his range. And with a few attempts, he had it probably by the end of the second attempt, and definitely the entirety of the third attempt.
Yeah.
And we established that. I really only worked with him maybe once or twice in my office, but I still get text messages from him after shows at 2:00 in the morning. He's like, I did that thing you talked about, and it's been saving my life because I'm doing these songs that I haven't tried to do for a decade. And even though, voices age and things change, he's now really going gung-ho about the much more difficult music. I mean, just look at the last few things that he's done. It's been
He's incredible.
11 out of 10
yeah.
all day. And his energy level's off the chain. And another shout out to one of my students, Noah Myers, who's been
I know of him,
out and about with Jim Donovan on stage, tearing it up on the guitar.
Noah Myers, he's also in Kelber, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because I saw that you worked with Kelber, Keith Harker, PittsburghVoiceCoach.com, and they're a great young up-and-coming band. They're out in the Greensburg area too,
yes,
correct?
They are all students of lovely little Hempfield High School.
Okay.
Next door, our rivals.
Yes.
Again, shout out to Aubrey Burchell and the Norwin representatives. Go alma mater. I ran into Noah Myers thanks to one of my other students from Hempfield. Again, everything was word of mouth and just people being super awesome with it. Noah, I don't even think he wanted to be the lead singer of his band.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it was one of the situations where they had a 3-piece and put the names in a hat, and then they're like, well, whoever gets it gets it, and he ended up drawing it. And I got to say, I think I lucked out on that point. No offense to the other guys, but they both. Oh, the bass player came to me anyway, so Tabor, thanks for that. But Noah, honestly, his musicianship and the way that he approaches music is honestly bewildering to me. I've never seen anybody work so hard with music, and he's one of those people that can speak, music theory to PhD level music professors and know exactly what's going on. I have no idea what he even says half the time. It was really cool. He was one of the first inspirational students to me. He's the one that had kind of like made me think outside of the box on how a voice coach can predominantly and most effectively affect a local music scene. Just to throw some things out there, lots of folks in the area just don't have means of generating media. Local recording studios, I understand everybody needs to get paid, and I totally get that. But, whenever there's some mom and pop guy that wants to cut a demo, try not to charge him $750 for it, because, he's not selling them. He's probably going to, take that demo, burn 5 copies of it, and hand it out to his family members. But I ran into a lot of students that were very, very promising. Even Aubrey and Kelber in the beginning had hard times finding places to generate media from. And until you have that name and until you have that revenue source, you don't have many options until, you're good enough that a recording studio is just going to give it to you pro bono because, well, you're good enough and you had to, fight for that reputation. So my business kind of evolved from just strictly voice work, just by sitting there and listening to you sing, to voice analysis. So I actually use live spectrogram analysis. I can analyze individual frequencies of your voice and the airflow of your voice and all that stuff. I do the live recording. I don't say that I do demos really officially because I don't consider myself a recording artist, but I will 100% put your blueprints on a CD so you can take it somewhere else and make it super kick butt for you.
Yes.
But it's just these things that are accessible now to these folks at this certain level of performance that makes the local music scene almost more enjoyable. It gives people more of an incentive to do stuff. They're like, oh, I don't have to already be huge to do the fun stuff in music. Oh, everybody can do it.
Technology has allowed just to do that.
Exactly
I'm a
right.
huge... People like to knock technology and the internet and things like that, but I work a full-time job outside of here that I use to fund basically everything that we do.
Right.
And if it wasn't for the information highway of the internet, I wouldn't be able to do the research to put together a talk show or even figure out how to use a green screen. I had one... Speaking of Norwin, our alma mater, I had one video production class at Norwin, and that's about the extent of my background in video work. So I had to teach myself how to do a lot of this stuff.
Remember how I was talking about how I had to submit that kid's audition video?
Yes.
I had that same video class, and I have about the same video editing education as you. So you can imagine how long I sat there in front of each one of those videos.
But you know what's crazy? That one class of video production makes something like iMovies impossible to use.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That was. Thank you, public education. That one goes out to you.
You know what, though? They were way ahead of their time,
I'll
if
admit,
you think about it.
They had a room full of 16 computers that wasn't a computer lab.
Yeah.
That
For
was
early
something
2000s,
special.
that's pretty incredible.
Yep.
So, and the green screen at a high school and a live video. Didn't they do a live video show in homeroom? I don't know. I was in the band. I never got to see it.
Channel 1. Oh, yeah. I fell asleep during it most of the time.
Yeah,
I was a lovely student. I did my homework in the mornings, but yeah. So moving on to like the technological integration and all that stuff is whenever you have that stuff accessible, I just integrate it with my lessons. Like if you want to come in and sing all the time, cool. If you want to come in and like produce media, or if you want to see how things sound in like a semi, official sounding recording setting, cool, we can dabble with that. So it's really up to you. I like to allow my clients to kind of curate how they use the information accessible to them. But again, my primary job is to sit there and be like, here's all the tools in the toolbox. This is how you use them. But I'm not going to tell you how to create art with them. I'm just going to tell you how they function.
How they work, yeah.
And that's really it's been truly a blessing to leave it that open-ended. All of my students that have come in, I've been blessed with each and every one of them. And I am honestly blown away by their skills. The folks that have come in that I've always kind of like, don't get me wrong, I'd still get my students that my eyebrows shoot to the sky about, but my eyebrows are never up there skeptical all that long. The people that are in the local music scenes, which is really why I have such a strong urge to keep the local music scene growing, is there is such a wealth of local musicians in Pittsburgh. Case in point, when I was in high school singing, our high school in Western Pennsylvania, anytime we represented anywhere, we smashed everything. And we like had rules rewritten for us because there were so many of us that would make it into things that they would be like, oh, well, we have to break the rules for them to get in here. Okay, that's cool. So Western Pennsylvania as a whole just has absolutely phenomenal performers, but you were running into things like, last year's roundtable meeting about the local music scene and how, it's not profitable to bring in just exclusively local musicians, and lots of things were being fought against that. And, that really hit me hard because that was when my business was actually starting to, kind of show up and start doing stuff for itself. And every single person that I was working with was a local musician effectively being ignored in this roundtable. And, that was right whenever Kailbers started showing up. And I mean, again, I will 100% say this. I do what I can to not be super awesome fans of my students, but like, I'm sorry, Noah, your guitar playing is insane, dude. But just watching those guys evolve and try to catch on, like they fit a very unique niche. They have a unique sound. It is not anything that is replicated in any large degree. And I work in the jam band scene. Like there is any different of avenue of music that they could be drawing influence from, but they are very specifically unique. And the fact that people aren't throwing them on tour outside of this city is like preposterous. Of course, you'd want to have a following for a band whenever they're already driving around, but how are you really going to do that unless you help put them on a little bit of a pedestal? At this point, I still kind of feel like an interesting degree of the music industry is well, here you go. Hope you do good. Pat on the back, let out the front door, and then like, well, if you come back, you come back. If you don't, good for you. But that seems to be about all the information that's out there for most of the people trying to figure it out on their own. I'm going to do one more quick shout out real fast to my friend Ava Iris, a.k.a. Jess Wegley, out in L.A. Jess was a local musician in Westmoreland County and did a lot of performances and, got, called into The Voice and all that stuff like that. And I met her from a mutual friend suggesting me as a voice coach to her for that final round of The Voice. Well, that kind of evolved into a really awesome friendship that effectively came to me telling her that she should teach too. There's no reason as a musician, as a skilled musician, that you cannot impart your skills and your knowledge on other people. And the reason why this was relevant with Jess and or Eva is the fact that she has a lot of music industry knowledge. There aren't a lot of musicians that know the actual inner workings of what happens back there. That's what your manager's for. That's what your, whatever else is for. The, recording studio handles all of this, or just different people handling different aspects of it. But the musician itself never really knows what's going on. So what Jess does now is she took my teaching comment to heart, and she works out of what's called the Create Academy in L.A.
Okay.
They do a lot of music production education, like folks running soundboards and all that fun junk. And she went out there for that class, but they found out her level of performance and then she started being a liaison between the business side of the music industry and the recording artists that were coming in there to learn. So now she was hired by Create as a consultant to basically be like, okay, you guys now know how to produce your own music, but here's how you copyright protect it. Here's how you distribute it. That's the type of knowledge that people need, but nobody has unless you just simply has a friend that has access to it. So I guess you can say the reason why everything's been so unique for me out in Westmoreland County is I'm like, as far as I know, the only person in Westmoreland County that's doing anything.
I would
like
imagine
that.
so. Yeah.
It feels like it. And the only people out in the city that really like to spout about voice science as much as I do are the folks that, again, work at the Voice Center in Pittsburgh or our other speech pathologists. They're not a lot of vocal technicians out there that like to get into the the underhood function of somebody's voice, I think, half as much as I do, but I'm just a massive nerd, so it works. So I guess I want the other people out there that do this too to kind of make a community about it. Like, keep working, keep bringing people in. Music's not supposed to be a competition, even though there's only so many slots on a ticket. It's not supposed to be a competition. Everybody should be like working together and making art, just all the time. If you want me to get my neo-hippie approach to things going, but that's what's awesome about the local Pittsburgh music scene. And honestly, shout out to Mr. Smalls and their association with like Spirit and all that stuff. These is like those venues, those things that become accessible to the local musicians, like the Funhouse. Those things are exactly what all other major venues in Pittsburgh needs. Admittedly, there's places like the Rex, which is a lovely venue. It's my favorite venue. I love it, but it doesn't have the ability to be changed. It's a garage door with a balcony, and that's all it's ever going to be. It's a great garage door with a balcony, but that's all it's going to be. Mr. Smalls is exploiting their space absolutely perfectly. Just and the opportunities involved for the local musicians are just they're not stopping, at least from this part of the city. I'm really hoping that other venues really start to kick up with that too. Really start to make like mini festivals, day festivals, make cheap tickets that are
just
for
All Scene,
for
which we just had yesterday, which was fantastic.
Oh, I wish I was making it. I was on my way back from tour. That was on my to-do list. But
it was great. Mike Zickafus did a fantastic job, especially the way he curates the art. I think he curates the art aspect to a multi-faceted festival better than anyone in the city. He did an unbelievable job with the Millville Music Festival with Art on Sedgwick. He does an incredible job here at All Scene. And it doesn't feel like it's so spread out. I told him I would talk about it a little bit on today's show. It makes sense when you go from table to table in the way he makes it compact and utilizes the space. He actually utilized the sound, like the little sound island in the main theater, and put tables around it. So he even utilized that space in the middle and was able to take that dead space in the middle of the theater and turn it into something living, which was really, really great.
I know I got feedback from my buddies in Broctopus that were performing last night. They actually have a show tonight, too, out in Howlers. Come on, check it out. But they were saying like that the event is great. They look forward to it. I'm pretty sure if they have it again next year, they're going to be looking forward to being on that ticket, and I know I will not miss it like I did this year.
Yeah, you can't miss it. It's only $10.
Yeah,
it's
great.
Incredible. That's Keith Harker, PittsburghVoiceCoach.com. Check him out there. We've got Joe Leytrick up in just a minute. We're going to go through the weird news quickly. Then we're going to talk with Joe about some of the changes that he has going on. But you guys are welcome to join in on the weird news. Let's play the music real quick. Welcome back to the River's Edge Radio Network, riversedgepgh.com. Also on the TuneIn Radio app. Don't forget you can find all of the backlog shows of River Talk. Just go to riversedgepgh.com/rivertalk, and all of the video and audio is right there at your disposal. We have an entrepreneur in the works at a local high school who sold her way into the homecoming queen position. Very ingenious. She is a former cheerleader. She sold pot and was able to entice people to vote for her through the sale of goods. And I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's a pretty incredible idea, a great way to rally the troops. And she did it. She's the queen. All thanks to the brownie. And a great story here. Mountain goats are being airlifted out of a park because they're obsessed with urine, human urine, and sweat. So much so that the goats are aggressively attacking people in the park, the national park in Washington, PA. So they've actually had to airlift the goats on like a belt into the air with a helicopter and fly them out of the park to save people from being mauled down by the goats. Goats are awesome, man. They've taken care of the lawns up in Polish Hill. Now they're taking care of pesky tourists. This sounds like a park that I would want to go to. I mean, what kind of clown is just like peeing around? I mean, I guess it is the woods, but I don't know. Third story, and this story here is fantastic. We're just rushing through them today. The third story has to deal with a horse. A horse walked into a bar, and the horse got pissed off. A runaway horse, a racehorse in France, broke free, made its way into a bar, and the horse started bucking, and it was pissed, and the people fled. They had to run for their lives. It's like the goats of France, these horses. There's a horse that was on the loose. The horse ended up getting taken back, but we're lucky and we're fortunate to have the horse in studio right here, only on the river's edge. We've got the horse in for an interview. The horse's name, I don't even have the horse's name here. So we're gonna go with Horsey. Horsey, hello, welcome to the river's edge.
Nay.
So tell me, what was going through your mind when you decided to were you thirsty? Were you looking for a drink?
Nay.
Did the people piss you off? Was it some sort of drunk but changing the channel? Was it music you didn't like?
Nay.
Okay. Was there a particular bar patron that you didn't like?
Nay.
We're not getting anything out of this. Bad interview. Sorry. I thought we would get the story. We're the only ones in the media like truly covering it, getting the horse in here, but no, it's not working. All right, we've got Joe Leytrick. He is here in studio. And you're no longer, so you were Hank the businessman.
Yeah.
But you no longer are Hank the businessman.
I'm no longer Hank the businessman. No.
What happened to Hank the buessman? Did he, like, was it a bad deal?
Ow, no. That right there is actually part of why. So
let's talk about
if
that.
anybody who knows me, my name is Joe, but I've kind of gone under this musical alias as Hank the Businessman for the last almost about 2 years. And a couple months ago, I decided the thought kind of like went into my head that in order to progress as a musician, I think I should drop it eventually.
Mm-hmm. You were talking to me about it a while ago when you were mulling it over. And
yeah, well, I went to LA in August, and when I went to LA, I was still thinking about it, and by the time I got out of LA, and I spent some time there really thinking about it and kind of talking to some people I knew out there about it, and I knew when I came back that I was going to change, and kind of just take a new plan as to what I was going to do musically. And the bare bones reason for the change is I got kind of sick of being prefaced as an act who makes music instead of just a guy who makes music. And I didn't think I was going to be taken as seriously as I wanted to be, because I've really been liking this new music. I feel like after this 2 years of really kind of like, I was in a band for a while, and like I never really wrote on my own, and then I got a MacBook, and then I got GarageBand, and then now I have Logic, and you really start honing your craft and doing it yourself, and really getting to a point where you're really comfortable and confident in that craft, and that's where I kind of came at, and that's where I'm at now. So I have a new plan as Joe Leytrick, and it started with the release of a song called Night Vision, which was last week, and it's called Project 28. And so
Yeah, I saw the picture with the 28, so I was going to ask you what that is about.
for the next year, I'm going to release a new song the 20th of every month.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that's my plan.
And the thing is like, you say that, and I know some people are listening here on the River's Edge, and they're saying, oh, yeah, I've heard it before. But you actually follow through with stuff like that. You had a plan to do 100 shows in a year, and you did that. So when you put your mind to something and you say you're going to do it, you do.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing that before I made the switch from Hank the Businessman to just me, Joe Leytrick. It's Leytrick, by the way, Ley. I know it could be misconstrued as Leytrick, but it's Leytrick. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I'm totally.
You made the
blanking.
transition.
Oh yeah, I made the transition, and I knew like the direction that I was headed in, and I didn't want to tell anybody. I only told like 3 people that I was actually doing that. I just wanted to have a seamless transition. Really, I didn't want to make this. I hate.
Was I one of the people you told? Because I felt like I was in the know before you released it.
I had talked to people about it, but
Okay.
I didn't really make like a definite like I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want anybody swaying my opinion, and I really trusted my intuition.
Well, you did come to me for advice, and I don't know if I probably gave you bad advice because I said basically do whatever you're comfortable with, but make a decision soon and stick with it because you can't keep changing your branding because then you got to make a decision, and I think it's fine to change, but I think you have to change and then commit to it. You know what I mean? And I feel like you have.
Yeah, and I'm at the point where I think when I'm my own person and I just kind of go by my name, it gets more personal, and that almost when you're an act, and especially one where I had sort of this personality where it was really charismatic and sort of boasted a little bit. It could be harder to connect with people. You're more like an act, and I just didn't feel that way anymore. I got sick of dressing up, and like you just like I'll see people dress up. And I'm like, okay, what's this all about? You know what I mean? It's attention drawing, and I think it was good to be ubiquitous and to kind of be out there, but to also be different because you go to any open mic, and not to say that anybody is any less talented or more talented because it's kind of a wide spectrum, but it can be hard to stick out sometime. Aside from having a crazy look or really just out there music or a crazy performance or whatever, and I think that was good to kind of just get attention, and I don't know. I'm at the point where I just want to be a prolific writer, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, I do feel that a lot of times the stick-to-itiveness can garner attention, and I think with the 100 shows, and I think with what you're doing this year with a new song every month, I feel like that will keep people coming and keep people interested. I know I've seen a lot of people in this industry, in the local podcasting industry, that come out and get a big crowd and a lot of attention, and then they disappear because they don't have that commitment or that planning or that willingness to not do something that they want to do on a Friday night. I think it's next Friday. There's an event going on that I really want to go to, but I've got a show, so I'll be here. But a lot of people don't have that drive, and I feel like that not only commitment but also that consistency where like every month you're going to come out with a new song and everybody knows that they can tune in and wait for that keeps people interested and engaged over the long haul, and people can trust you, and I think that's the biggest thing is that trust factor, because if you're here one week, gone the next, people kind of lose faith, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and especially when you make the decision to run a business, or kind of like what Keith was hitting on, like if you run a business, or music's a business when you really think of it in its core piece, the more you're consistent, how many people have you known? I mean, I personally have seen a lot of musicians who they have this run of about 6 months, and please come to my show. Like, if you want to convince anybody to come to your show, you have to show them that you're consistent. And to be honest, like I'm saying this is just kind of like a tool, and I'm saying it just to communicate it. But a lot of these things, like the 100 shows, this 12 song thing I'm doing, I kind of like I have to prove to myself that I can do it. You know what I mean? It's great to get the attention, and it's great to it's cool to tell people and whatnot. That's great and all, but first and foremost, I have to prove to myself I can do it, and I know I can do it. I mean, I've got the songs. It's just a matter of execution. And I think that approach from the things I've released and really being acclimated in music and the music scene, that it's a good way to stay relevant too. Because if you spend a year making an album with 12 songs and you're not really that well known, you're gonna spend a lot of money. And there's a very, very small percentage of people who are going to listen to it all the way through, start to finish. I mean, even big artists, very few big artists have their albums listened to all the way through. So it's.
But I feel like that's what is so intelligent about the way that you're handling this, is because you're coming out with a song each month. There's always something new that's being pushed out incrementally. So it does get you out there. So then people will hear the full product because they keep getting reintroduced to what you're doing. A good example of that is with the PodCon that we just threw for the River's Edge, which was this convention of podcasters in the Pittsburgh area. Well, I made a post every day with just a little trickle of a few more podcasts that were there. Okay, this day we're announcing these few, then these few. So every single day there was something that was hitting people's news feed, but it was new information every time. It wasn't just here's this, pushing out the flyer in everybody's face every single day. It was a new announcement with new information that kind of kept people engaged with what was going on. And I feel like that's what's so interesting about this approach that you're doing with releasing a song every month, is that it is something new. It's not just you going out and hammering the same song over and over again for a year. It's something new, so it's something that'll keep people interested and keep people coming back. It's not just a repetitive thing, if that makes sense.
Well, I think the conversation you and Keith were having, and I really enjoyed that conversation. I do have a vocal coach, and I certainly understand the importance of it. I'd actually really like to talk to you after this. Sure. But my vocal coach is great, but of course,
I'd like to meet him to hear what he has approaches to things. That's the thing, is like,
it's a she, but yes,
it's she.
Yeah,
He's she.
She's great.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, you can only, information doesn't all get drawn from one well. Mm-hmm. The water flows in from everywhere. So you have to. I don't feel any competition. Heck, I taught somebody who used to teach me to sing in high school. That blew my mind.
Oh wow!
But that's the thing, is like, even though I was technically the instructor in this situation, I was 100% taking information from her. Anybody that takes these types of like organic approaches to things, it's all about perspective, and everybody has a different perspective. So honor them and pursue them, because that's how you can find your new answers to music. I mean, it's all about self-expression. It's all about things like that. But sometimes somebody else has almost an easier way than you for how to present your own thing. It's very strange. I know that as a performer, for me, the first time I had a voice coach, I was like very offended. I was like, how dare you tell me that what I'm doing in my art is like not right. But it's not that it wasn't right. It's just that there was simply some type of variable or feedback that I wasn't perceiving within myself, that my audience was perceiving. And without my first voice coach, I would have never turned my performance personality inward. I would have never been like, that character looks like he's doing this on stage, or this song has this tone in my voice presenting this type of message. I just simply would have been.
And it takes some guts to do that, I think, because it's so hard when you're talking about someone's art,
right,
to tell them where they need to improve or what they can do better.
Well, vocal coaching is a little different though, because it's one thing for somebody to go, well, I don't like the way that word sounds there, or I don't like your choice of melody or whatever. And in that case, I'm very open to it. Hey, I will certainly listen to criticism, and I think in order to be a prolific writer and a really good artist, you have to be open to that. But I would say most of the time I've gone to the point where I trust myself more often than not. I mean, there's some times where people are like, you should have done that, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I don't know why I didn't think of that. But like with vocal coaching, like I had issues vocally in my throat and whatnot, and I actually went to
ENT.
Dr. Felder, shout out.
What does ENT
he performed
stand for?
surgery on me, ear, nose, and throat doctor.
Oh, okay.
Did you have nodules?
No, I actually had I almost died in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you were curious, your senior year, why I was missing about 70% of that year of high school, I actually had it was a throat infection that just like antibiotics wouldn't kill, and then the infection itself evolved and started spreading to my spinal cord. But Dr. Felder hooked a boy up.
Dr.
And
Felder
kept me going. Dude,
Small world, man.
I'm not even joking. And after that surgery, that was what immediately thrust me down into the path that I'm now currently sitting in this chair about.
Wow.
Like 2 weeks after that, I used to sing in barbershop quartet in high school. And of course, that involves like a lot of accurate singing. And I was super worried after that surgery. Like, don't mess around in my throat and expect me to not be paranoid about it.
Yeah.
But I went to the Voice Center in Pittsburgh, which is, the best. It's literally the best place in the country. And they webcam once a month with the other best place in the country to make sure that they're the best places in the country. So I went there. And at the end of my first therapy lesson, Dr. Judy Gardner-Schmidt, shout out to you. I know you're still there, and you're working with one of my undergrad classmates, Allie. So hi, Allie. Just the question that she asked me in the middle of my therapy session, she's like, "You're a senior in high school. What are you doing with your life?" And I'm like, And she's like, "You should look into speech pathology." And after the end of the day, I 100% I didn't even think about anything else. I was like a theater person, like a performance technical theater person, AV, all that.
Yeah, he actually
really?
directed a play that I wrote once.
Yeah, that's right, you did.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. It's the only play I've ever had produced.
That was so much fun. I enjoyed that.
Good.
But that was the stuff, like talking to those medical professionals, that, and especially the people at the Voice Center. If you ever have any voice questions at all, they have a singing voice pathologist there. Those aren't even like really a big thing. They're just like, there's a very small handful of them. So go there, ask your questions, get checked out, and ask like the weird questions. Like, oh, sometimes when I sing this song, there's like a weird high-pitched buzzy thing that pops into my voice every now and again. They'll shove a camera in your face and find it and figure out what it is. It's 100% worth it. And like as you were saying too, professional musicians, they have to be aware of the content that they're providing, and you can only provide a certain level of content if you're maintaining all aspects of your instruments in a certain way. So yeah, thank you for that conversation. I'd like to get her information too. I'd love to talk to your voice coach about stuff, see how she approaches things.
Shout out Molly Spino.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I know her.
She's great. But yeah, and especially on that, I had to get my vocal cords looked at because I was really worried about it. And I think having a vocal coach, if you're trying to be a good artist and you're trying to give your all on stage and you're trying to, really convince people that you're worth listening to, you need confidence. And having a vocal coach is simply confidence. And no one's going to tell you, they're not going to tell you, well, you need to sing like this. You're doing it the complete wrong way. Sometimes it's worth just going to somebody just to hear like, okay, you're doing good. It's calm down. Like I have a lot of anxiety about my voice. That like my guitar playing I'm cool with, performing I'm cool with, being in front of people, but my voice I've always been, a little less confident about. So if you go to them, just to hear like you're doing good, like, it's all good. Calm down. So
I joke a lot, honestly. People ask me what I do whenever I tell them I'm a voice coach, and I say I give permission to do things that you always have been able to do. You just, never really dive headfirst into it. Everybody takes that cautionary dipping the toe into the water first before they jump in. I find, honestly, the biggest hang up on just about anything in performance is that inability to just jump in. Everybody has a fear of failure. That's exactly what that is. But I'll be perfectly honest. The biggest failure I've ever seen was the most entertaining moment I've ever seen in my life. And
what's that?
I was on a high school trip to New York City to see a Broadway show. We saw Spam-A-Lot. The guy playing Lancelot entered on stage, and this other character who was supposed to be like the conversational, partner there was doing something I would assume they did every night, but just a little bit different, and made Lancelot laugh for like 15 minutes. I'm not even joking. He sat on the edge of the stage, turned his microphone off, like had casual conversations with the people. And this was not off-Broadway. So those people who don't know what that is, off-Broadway is not technically Broadway in New York, but it was actually Broadway.
Wow.
And this dude just straight up forever was just sitting there and laughing. Anytime he turned around to go try to get back into character, he just immediately shattered again. But if in my mind, confidence really plays in if you can make that leap and feel those butterflies and potentially even actually succeed in screwing up. But it's what you do immediately after that that makes the world a difference. Because if, again, like he could have fallen off the stage and like broken something, and if he got up and played that off just right, I'd have had 1,000% more fun than I already had laughing at his previous screw up. So that's why, I mean, one of my biggest advices, especially because a lot of kids come to me just for that confidence thing. Everybody, if you can carry a tune in a bucket, you can basically do what anybody does up on stage. If you just need to be a little zen about it, you know, you gotta be okay with the butterflies, or you gotta learn how to use that nerves, you know, that nervous feeling either for your advantage or allow it to influence your music. You know, use it to light a fire under you so you don't get overwhelmed by it, or let it overwhelm you so you can sing a song about a nervous person. It's like, in my mind, it's just so very straightforward with how to fight against this emotional stuff. But I guess it's just because I've been a crazy person my whole life. So just telling people to be weird up on stage just seems natural to me.
Yeah.
It's not very easy for the people up on stage trying to be weird for the first time in their lives.
Yeah, that's definitely true. As a performer, it's you know, kind of like with the 100 shows thing. Like sometimes you play shows where you play for 100 people. You play shows where you play for one person.
Yeah.
You know, you learn about a lot about who you are as a performer, and it's kind of a soul searching thing. Just kind of like who you are as a person, and you learn what you're good at and what you're not. And you know,
Well, I think the important thing is to treat every performance as if you're in front of a few hundred people.
you never. Ed Sheeran, this one time, he said one of the first time I ever performed in front of anybody, I played this open mic. And there were two people in the audience. One guy he didn't know, and the other guy was one of the performers. But he found out after the gig that one guy he didn't know was a record label for like Atlantic Records, like a major
That's
label.
happened to a few people, yeah.
And you just never know who's in that audience. You never know. So you have to give 100%. It doesn't matter. There's one person. There's 1,000 people.
But the way I see it is even if you do know who it is, what kind of a performer are you if you're going to throw it in when there's not enough people there? First off, it's a little egotistical. And secondly, you're really not that passionate about what you're doing if you're...
I don't necessarily think that a performer would approach that, at least a performer that took themselves seriously.
Yeah.
If a performer took themselves seriously, then exactly what you said before, they'd probably go up onto that stage during that performance every day and just be like, I'm going to give it my all because whatever. I think that the thing is there's a perspective loss there in the sense that if somebody knew that somebody famous was out there, somebody knew that somebody influential was out there, they would change their performance. If anything, it would be detrimental. We're talking about nerves and confidence. You know, there is a hilariously embarrassing recording of me somewhere in the Barbershop Harmony archives. Don't ever anybody find it or release it. But my first year competing internationally on stage,
Get on that, Zach.
you can hear my heartbeat through the note that I'm holding.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious. It's like,
really?
Yeah, you can just hear me like, I'm like holding on a nice low bass note and you just hear, like completely with my heartbeat every time. Like,
Really?
It was so, I mean, what was I going to do about it? I'm already on stage in front of 4,000 people. It doesn't matter. But like, that was embarrassing. And it was one of those situations where like, you know, short of drugging me and then making me sing in an unknown environment that I wasn't aware of 4,000 people sitting in an auditorium, I would have probably still been nervous, you know. But whenever you find out that you should always just perform like those people don't matter, I think is really what I'm saying. I kind of joke. I say that the audience is the stupidest thing you'll ever perform for, but it's because those people are not there to come and have opinions about your music. They are there to have your opinions given to them.
Yes.
That's what happens when somebody buys a ticket. Unless you are an ass, then you're going to go to a show and you're going to like, I paid for this ticket so I could hate on that guy up on stage. No, you're going there because you want to turn your brain off from the 9 to 5. You're going there because of the humdruggery of your life, and you're like, I just need a mental vacation from it, so I need to connect to something. You like the artists you like because they force you to feel a certain way, but that's not your choice. That's what they're telling you to feel. That's like the point of music and art. So when people get nervous about the audience being up there, I almost think it's irrational at this point, but at the same time, like, I don't know how else to explain it other than just being like, you can't worry about them. They are not important. They're there because they occupy space. You're there because people want you to stand up on that stage. And like that's the dynamic is not much more than that.
Yeah, I agree. I've never really cared what anyone thinks when it comes to my program. It's about my thoughts, and if the host or the performer is not interested and engaged,
Right.
then no one else will be.
Honor
either.
your audience. Be very thankful that they're there. I mean, obviously,
They should
you
be
want to
thankful I'm there.
But that's the thing too.
Specifically, Brian Crawford.
Right,
Exactly.
specifically. But that's the thing. You can't just you can't take it super seriously in the sense that again, you build more obstacles for yourself. You just have to be down with it. You have to be cool.
You have to be authentic.
And you have to be authentic. If you're up there letting your audience determine your performance, then what are you as an artist? Oh, son of a...
We found a website there.
Well, that didn't take long.
A headline.
Oh,
So-
social media.
Joe, when it comes to stage performance, do you find has it been difficult making the change? Have
No.
people gravitated to it quickly?
The only like big obstacle I kind of saw with it is that, I only had really one friend who was like, I don't think that was a good move. Out of everybody I told, but and the one friend was like, well, you spend all this time kind of building your brand and all that technical aspect of it, and and kind of like literally what we were just talking about, like when you can connect with your audience more when you're not this act anymore. Like I'm going up there and I'm singing about stuff that it's in my life, and there's a pretty decent chance you're dealing with it now, or you've dealt with it before, or you might even deal with it somewhere down the line. You'll remember my song or whatever. And I think it's really good to kind of just connect with them, because I'm like a person and I like to write music. And recently I was showing some demos to my family when I went to Newark last week, and one of the biggest compliments they gave me, and one that really stuck with me this past week, was the new music I've kind of was showing them was I felt something, and I was like, all right, there we go. Now we're starting to get a little more traction. And not to say that my previous music wasn't doing that, but again, you kind of like you live, and then you know when the good songs come, and like just really how to be personal with somebody. Mm-hmm. Even like when you're on stage and there could be 100 other people. You perform in a way that it even if there's one person in the audience out of that 100 people, it's almost like they're talking to you, like the performer's talking just to you, and other people can feel that. And I through a lot of performing, that kind of like intimacy is really hard to get good at. And I just think with performing and writing good songs.
I do kind of seem like that might be even like the biggest divide between what is desired within a local music scene and what makes things being brought in from out of town, is that innate natural ability to connect that in an almost automatic kind of way. A local musician's still kind of almost cutting their teeth on it, or at least an inexperienced local musician. But when you have that approach and you can make that connection, almost especially, and I can vividly remember like probably 4 or 5 of the most recent shows I've been to, I can remember when the lead guitarist or lead singer is like staring at somebody in the audience, and you look at that person that they're staring at, and you look like the 12 people around them, all the people around that one person that performer is staring at is like, look at you experiencing this amazing thing right now. You're having this connection with the audience. Like the rest of the audience is hyped for that one person that they're having an intimate endeavor with the performing artist while they're up on stage, like effectively performing the song for them. So being able to do that non-verbal and non-direct, because it's not direct unless you're making eye contact, like the ability to make that and make it a common thing, I think it needs to be a trend in any type of musician's evolution. Because if you're just up there, I give a lot of my students hard times about it because they'll stare at their fretboard. I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand that, like, I don't play guitar, so this is just baffling to me whenever they do that stuff at the same time. Mm-hmm. But when you're staring at your fretboard's not giving you emotional feedback. You got to at least pick some person out in the audience and stare at for a second or two, just to know really how you're doing up there. Like, am I singing a sad song? Are they looking sad, or are they looking super happy?
Well, let's give it a shot, because you're going to play to a bunch of faceless people on the internet.
Oh, there you go.
Joe Leytrick, what are we going to play?
Well, I guess I'll play a Hank the Businessman tune, because my new tune I released doesn't carry over well to just me and a guitar. So we'll see how this goes. Now that I know that there's a vocal coach in here, I'm going to be really nervous about how my voice sounds. So, me. All right, here we go. This song is cleverly called Music. So here we go. The traffic. Hang on. I'm going to do one of these. The traffic is getting in the way, and now my mind has slipped into outer space. The shower and my bed's eating game because it's been a long day. See, broken phone isn't calling now, swerving out of control. When I come around lightheaded, when hunger is profound, I'm dead. It's been a long day, but I have headphones in my ear to drain out the rest of the world. In the music I hear certain sick I hear. So listen so clear. I woke up in a rush, I was late and got the 3 p.m. feeling in my leg. She's mad cause the last week wasn't great, I'm dead. It's been a long day. Say, forgot to brush my teeth at dawn. I've been too reckless, now my paycheck's all gone. And someone said they don't like my songs. It's been a long day, but I'm so busy and on the run. Miles and miles I go, glasses on my face to drain out the rest of the world. In the color I see, too bright but just right the breeze. So just breathe down deep. Busy and on the run, miles and miles I go. Jacket on my person to drain out the rest of the world. In the cotton I feel. Can't say or explain how it feels to just breathe down deep. When it's only temporarily, yeah.
Joe Leytrick here on the River's Edge at riversedgepgh.com. Fantastic job as always in studio. Always great to have you on the program, and let's do it again real soon. So I talked to you, and I promised you I would tell you about failing with Sprint. And I'm going to wrap this up real quick because we had such a great conversation about local music that I wanted to keep that going, and I didn't want to stall that. But I did promise you the goods, and I'm going to deliver. So I tried to get the new phone today. It's November 1st. But I thought, you know what? I don't want to wait. The battery's dying. I'm going on this wedding, which is a whole other situation. So I thought I'll ask the question. So I go online, and I always do this. I go to the customer service rep in the chat room, and I ask all of the questions, and I phrase the questions a certain way to get a certain answer, so that way I can print the transcript and walk into the Sprint store and say, see? See, I told you I could do this. So basically, they want you to pay all this money to not. They call it a purchase option, but you still don't even get to keep the phone. It's really weird. Or you could pay twice the purchase option and then keep the phone. But I said, no, I don't want to do any of that. I want to pay $40, and that's it. Just $40. Next month's lease, get the new phone, end the question. And then it showed online where, you had to pay a down payment to get the phone. I said, I'm not doing that either. No cash, right out the door, phone, $40, that's it, done deal. She agreed, had it in writing. Go to the Sprint store, of course, out of iPhones. Every Sprint store in Pittsburgh's out of iPhones. So I go to Best Buy, I'm there, pull out the list. The lady I was talking to at Best Buy, super professional, awesome. They had them in stock. The guy on the other line at Sprint didn't like what he was hearing, and he's all folksy, and I just don't know, and pulls up the account, says, well, you got to pay this amount of money, the purchase option. I said, I understand. I talked to somebody. I have the transcript here. I have a reference number. Guy would not take the reference number. After 4 or 5 times, I had to yell at the guy on the phone and say, I have the reference number. Finally took the reference number. Claims that it brings nothing up. And I told him on the phone, I said, you're lying. You're lying. You can see, the transcript. We're showing it here on the video, and I'll post a copy of it on the Facebook page for the audio listeners at River Talk PGH. I told him he's lying. I said, no business gives you a reference number for customer service to not be able to refer to it. That's the entire purpose of a reference number. So, needless to say, this guy's a clown. I hung up on him. I told him that he was wasting my time and Best Buy's time. Hung up on him, and then immediately called Sprint back from the phone to complain, and then, of course, missed my exit when I was going out to get wings in Shadyside. So that's how my day went, but we're here, and it ended with a great conversation. But yeah, Sprint, they have designed, and then I found out talking to the lady on the phone that with the reference number, they can only get the notes from the sales representative. They can't actually read the transcript. So Sprint has set it up to make it that even if you have an actual hard copy of the conversation and your possession, the person on the other side of the line still can't read it. So basically, they have set you up to no matter what, even if you get the information in writing, it still doesn't matter. That's Sprint for you, the Wells Fargo of cell phone companies. That's it in a quick nutshell. So yeah, Sprint, it's crazy. I'm going to end with this, and it's just a little commentary on social media. If you get the double messages or whatever, don't tell the person. I don't know if I was hacked or if everybody else was hacked and they're just sending me messages, but I've gotten a million messages of people. I know, everybody knows, everyone's sending the same message around. It's a mass message. It's people are copying and pasting the message. That's why I don't think it has anything to do with my account, because I'm getting the same exact verbiage from everybody. Just don't do it. And shit like this is going to be the end of Facebook, and all I know is I'm ready to take my account to Hahn Funeral Home and give it a good old send-off. The only family-owned funeral home here in Millville, known for the green burial. That's it. That's River Talk. I'm Brian Crawford. Thanks to Keith and Joe for coming in. I'll be back Friday night. Head down to Howlers to see some Broctopus if you missed them last night at All Scene. It was fantastic. It's Keith Harker. That's Joe Leytrick. Zach Fell behind the board. I'm Brian Crawford. This has been River Talk on the River's Edge Radio Network, Pittsburgh's voice for local music.